What is up everyone, Keira Arts here, and in today's video I'll be showing you how to create an isometric portal piece in Cinema 4D. And we'll be learning about how to light the scene, model it, and even how to speed up your renders. So we'll be using Cinema 4D R14 Studio version and Photoshop to create this with no plugins necessary. So let's dive right in. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is to be creating the floor. So we're going to go grab a cube object and scale it down. We're going to keep the dimensions in 200 by 200 just to make it easier. And we're going to texture this. So we're going to create a simple material, something just below the white, and we're going to turn off specular. I'm going to drag that above. Now we also want to have a black border around only the top face of the cube. So we're going to go into Photoshop, and we're going to go to File, New, and we're just going to create a square. After that, we're going to unlock the layer by double clicking it, and we're going to grab the marquee tool that can be found over here, and we're going to be making a selection over the entire cube. Now we're going to color it in. We're just going to grab the brush, and then we're going to take the fill, lower it to 0%, go to stroke, and then we're going to set a stroke inside. It's going to be black. We have something like this. Perfect. Then we're going to go to File, Save for Web. Make sure you're saving it as a PNG 24 because it saves the transparency. We're going to go to Save. We're going to go Save to Desktop as Edge. We're going to click Save. So what we're creating now is called an alpha map. So we're going to create a new material. Going to set the color to black because it'll influence what the color of our alpha map will be. We'll turn off specular again. We'll go to alpha, and we're going to go select our image. Edge. Yes. And as you see, it creates this edge around the sphere with nothing inside. So we're going to make this cube editable. Grab the polygon selection, grab the top, and drag it on top. Select the mode to edge, cubic, and we're good. And we created this top facing cube with a black border. Pretty neat. Next we're going to go to MoGraph and Cloner, because we're going to want to clone the object to create a floor-like pattern. So we're going to select Grid Array, and we're just going to play with the values. So we only want one floor. And then we want a bunch going this way, and a bunch going on the x-axis and the y-axis. Or z-axis, sorry. We're going to zoom out, and we're going to adjust these values. It should be a multiple of 200. So I think that's somewhere right. You can always fix that later. I'm going to scale it out like this. Perfect. Now if you go into camera and then you select isometric, you have created this cool pattern. And even if you click render, you see that we created a pretty cool floor. I'm just going to change one quick value. I'm going to shrink this to be closer to each other. Just a bit. Click render again, and that looks perfect. So we can name this to be our floor. Now after this, we're going to want to light the scene. And to light the scene, because Portal is a very white tinted game, not a lot of colors, so we're just going to use a 3-point lighting system. So grab 3 lights. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to set one light to be up top, one light to be on this side, and one light to be on this side. Now in 3-point lighting system, the bottom light, so light 1, is going to be the most powerful light, and it's also going to set the color of your scene. So we're gonna set it to somewhere around 85 and set a bluish tint to it. Perfect. Our next light is gonna be slightly less powerful, and we're just gonna make it a basic white light. And then the top one, we'll just add some depth to it. And that looks good. I'm also gonna add a slight yellow tint to it, so I'm gonna make a duplicate of that light and just make it a yellowish tint. Zoom back in. And that's something what we want, but I think the top light is a bit too powerful. So we're gonna lower that a bit more. And we get an effect like this. We're also gonna go to Effect, Ambient Inclusion, and we're gonna also set it to Global Illumination as an IR still image. I'll explain what all that means later on in this video. We can click Render again. And we get a pretty cool lit scene. Again, you can experiment with the lights, but this is basically how the scene was done before. You can even decrease this again. All depending on how you want your scene to look. Now, if we weren't working in an isometric mode and we had a background or something in the back, we'd also use another light to shine at the background in order to add increase more depth. So now we're gonna make the actual indents that go into these cubes. So we're gonna go to Floor, and we're gonna select this to be editable. That way we can move each individual object. And we're going to be removing these 4 in order to add our letters. So we're going to grab this one, Edit Copy, File New. I'm going to be dragging it into our scene. So now we want to create some kind of grid that goes inside this little cube in order to add some complexity to our scene. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the top facing object, Extrude Inner. We're going to drag that in, and then we're going to extrude that down. And our small grids is going to go inside this cube. After that, we're going to go to Camera, and we're going to go to... Actually, we're going to go over here, and we're going to select Front. Now we can disregard this object. We're going to make a simple little grid. A girder, perhaps. So we're going to go to Linear, Spline. We're going to make our own spline. So we're going to do 1 point here. Another one over here. And we're just going to make a simple shape using the spline object. And over here. Now we can unclick that, click spline, and we can click close spline. And it'll close our spline object for us. Now we can go back over here into our perspective mode, and we can see that we have created the spline. Now we can go to Extrude NURBS, drag the spline underneath as a child of the object. Whoops. And increase our depth. And that could be 1 girder. Just gonna scale that down again. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. And now, since we know that the width is 200, we can just set this to be 200 as well. Now we can go to MoGraph, Cloner. Drag the Extrude NURBS underneath the cloner. And instead of them moving up top, we're going to set them to move across. Perfect. Now we can set this to be in the center. And move the cloner inside. So we want to have around, let's say, 4 of them inside, or 3. Let's see how 4 works out. That looks pretty good. Doesn't have to be exact. Gonna scale down the extrude NURBS again. And that looks pretty good. Now after we've done that, we're gonna select the cloner, and while pressing Ctrl, we're gonna make a new layer, and we're gonna rotate it 90 degrees and set it back on top of our cube. Pretty cool. So after that, we're gonna hide all of these layers, and we're just gonna group them quickly. And we're gonna create some pipes. So we're gonna go back to our 4 perspective view. We're gonna go on our front, and we're gonna make another spline, but this time it's going to be Bezier. So it doesn't matter how big you make it, because we're gonna be scaling it down later on. So I'm gonna set 1 point here, another one here, dragging it out, then another one here, and another one here, and dragging it out. Perfect. Just make sure you don't close the spline. Back to our 4 perspective view, and back to perspective. Now we're gonna grab a circle spline, scale it down, and then grabbing our sweep NURBS, which will take the circle spline and drag it across the spline, making it into an object. You'll see what I mean in a second. So we just created a pretty basic pipe, which looks pretty cool. Pretty content with it. We're gonna make it editable. Go to our display so we can see each segment. Quick shading lines. And we see all our segments. Pretty cool. And we can make it editable. So now we're just gonna randomly drag them across to create some kind of basic pattern that we can work with. So we're gonna go back to our 4 perspective view and now click our top view. So I'm gonna go to our material. And we're just gonna start dragging them across. And then we're going to increase the scale sometimes and just continue working like this. Just again to add some complexity to our scene. So that's good enough. You can add whatever else you want into this little pattern that we've created. Doesn't have to be anything special. Looks pretty cool. So back to our 4 perspective view, that you can see that we created some pretty cool pipes. And we're going to group them all into one object again by right clicking after we selected them all and connect objects and delete. So we're going to unhide our previous creation and we're going to scale down our little tubes and drag them inside here. Now if they were too big like I created, you can just scale them down a little bit more and then copy and paste them within the actual cube. So we'll create one over here, one on this side, one on this side, and over here. So now we're going to make a basic material for the girders and pipes. So we're going to go to Create, New Material, and we're going to grab some kind of grunge texture. So we're going to go Texture, we're going to click on there, and then find any texture you want on Google. So I'm just going to go on Image, select one I found earlier, which I will link in the description. Oh, actually I haven't. So we're going to go on Google. And we're going to type in Google grunge material. And we can grab this one. Save image to desktop. And we could close everything out. So we can select image, grab the texture, go to effect, hue, saturation, lightness, and we're going to kill the saturation to make it black and white. Kill the hue as well and darken it up a bit. Perfect. We can even add a bit of reflection for null and just scale it down to around 5%. Make sure your specular is off. And we can drag that onto the girders. We can do the same thing with the pipes. We can press Ctrl and make a duplicate of the material. And we're just going to darken it up by going back to our layer and decreasing the lightness. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Perfect. We're also going to add a little subtle effect to create some kind of rusty effect to it. So we're going to go to New Material again. I'm going to do the same technique we used for the border to create rust. So we're going to go to Color. We're going to select a brown. And as before, I went on Google and I grabbed a lava texture. Something with cracks in it. So we can go to Alpha, Load Image, my portal references, and an image sort of like this. Has small lava cracks in it, and if you take away the black, it could create a pretty cool rusty effect. So we're going to set it to be a bit less brown, or actually darken it up a bit. Perfect. We're going to drag this onto our girders. And I'm happy with it. And these are going to be our 4 that we're going to have in our scene. So we can make connect objects and delete again, drag them into the scene. We can even grab another MoGraph cloner. Drag this underneath. Change the cloner to linear. We're going to have 4. Decrease the Y segment to 0. And increase the X. Perfect. So we're gonna go click on the cloner, edit, copy, and drag it over to our first scene. And we're gonna delete the first cube, second cube, third cube, and fourth cube. Control V. Rotate this around. And fill it in our missing spot. Whoopsie daisies. And that looks pretty good. And if we render it out, So the next thing we're going to do is to create the platforms on which the letters are going to be on. So we're going to pretty much use the same technique as we did for the floor. So we're going to go over to Photoshop. And we're going to go to View, New Guide. We're going to type in 25%. View, New Guide, 50%. View, New Guide, 75%. We're going to go to do the same thing for the horizontal. So 25%. 50%. And 75%. And we're going to take a sample of what we did before. So we're going to take this, create a new layer, color it in with black, and just align them on the grid lines that we created. Perfect. And then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're just going to select them all, Control E, and then just rotate them around. Snazzy. We can clear the guides, go to File, Save for Web, and called Platforms. Again, make sure that you're saving in PNG 24 format with transparency checked on. Minimize Photoshop. Then we're going to go select another one of these platforms. Edit, copy. Control V. And instead of having this material selected, we're going to make a copy of our alpha map. And just choose a different image that we just created. So we're going to go back to desktop where I saved the image, and we're going to click Platforms. Select. And it should be working now. I'm going to select the top facing object and drag this on. Perfect. So after we've created that, we're going to drag this down. And just start adjusting the angle at which it is tilted. So this can be our first angle. Drag this over. We can lower this one down a bit. Select both of them and move them to the right. Gonna add a bit of a tilt over here. And one like that. This is gonna be where our letters are gonna be placed on. And to do that, you're just gonna do the same effect as before, which I realized I should have done with the actual cubes. But it's a bit too late for that. So we're gonna grab Mode Text, select my favorite font of Nexa. Pretty slow. Wow, it's really slow. There we go. Next, a bold. Rotate this around. I'm gonna spell some kind of 4-letter word. Let's just spell dare again. So we're gonna have D. I'm gonna put this in the center. Make a copy. I'm gonna rotate the first letter. this, I want to create this small metaball that's behind our image, that goes into the portal that's coming out from the glass nerves. So it's not too hard to create. So we're gonna go... So first of all, let's create the glass material. So we're gonna go shader and click Boundji, however you say that. Double click it, and we're gonna have some fun here. So we're gonna go to anisotropy, click it, and we're gonna have shrink wrap enabled. And then we can disable transparency and reflection for now, and diffuse as well. So for our first specular hit, we want it to be pretty powerful. So we're gonna increase the intensity. The size can be 0.8. And that's pretty good. The second specular hit will be also white. And we're just gonna increase the size of it to add a bit of blurriness to it. And the third specular hit will also be just a little bit darker than white, with an even larger size to it. Then we're going to check back on transparency and reflection. And actually I'm going to disable reflection. And that is our glass material. I'm just going to decrease the intensity of the middle white specular hit. It's a bit too strong for my liking. And that is great. So we're going to go into File, New. So we're going to select the circle spline and another circle spline to go on top of that. We're going to do the same thing from before and choose sweep NURBS. Drag both of them underneath and make the top one a bit smaller. And we can see that the size is 135, 130, which is roughly the size of one of those platforms. Then we're going to go into sweep NURBS and change the end growth to 100. Or actually, no, we're going to change the end growth to somewhere around here. Perfect. Make this object editable. Select children, connect objects and delete. And now we're going to create the basic rim that went around the other object, so we're going to hide this for now. And we're going to click Tube and just start playing around with these settings. So we're going to increase the inner width, decrease it a bit more. Then we're going to add another one on top of that. Shrink it once again, make it editable. Then we're going to select a cylinder object, MoGraph cloner, to clone it around a radial type of way. The plane will be XZ. Increase the count, increase the radius, and we can drag it up. Perfect. Then we can drag the bottom tube again, drag it on top, and this looks pretty cool. We can texture it all later. So I'm gonna select all of this, make it editable, select it again, connect objects and delete. I'm just gonna select the objects of the cloner first, connect objects and delete, and then I'm gonna select all of it, connect objects and delete. Unhide the tube that we made in the beginning, scale this down, and just position it at the end of this object. Awesome. Now we're going to create the metaball. So we're going to go choose a sphere object, It's already centered for us. Make it a bit smaller. You can also change the segments to a lower count. As long as you have the font tag on, it will not matter. And this is what I'm talking about. So now we're going to go to MoGraph, Cloner. And we're going to want a grid. One here. 2 on this side. And quite a lot on this side. Rotate it around. And we can decrease the scale of this once again. Next we're going to go to MoGraph, Effector Random. And then drag all of this underneath a metaball. Also make sure the metaball, the editor subdivision is lowered. Or actually, there we go. Quite a lot. We're gonna have to scale a lot of this down. So we're gonna go back to Metaball. Increase the segment count. And decrease the size of our Metaballs. And then drag them closer to each other. Really just experimentation. Nothing hard to it. So we're going to drag all of it down again. Increase the size of our spheres. And then drag them further apart this time. Or just add more to the sphere count. That's gonna do. And now we're gonna have all the Metaballs going into a small portal onto the other side, which will be on one of those platforms that we saw before. So you can go on Google, type in portal from the game Portal. But we're gonna go into Photoshop, and I already found an image from before that I will link in the description. So we're gonna go to our Portal references, and I'm gonna select this one. So then we're going to go select the marquee tool and drag an oval marquee tool over the image, and then drag it to position it where we want it to be. Right click, select inverse, make sure the layer is unlocked, and press delete. And we have a portal. Gonna go to File, Save for Web, PNG 24, and name it Portal. Perfect. And we don't need to save this. So we're going to select all of this, group objects, edit, copy. Now, once you dragged it onto the main layer, we're going to move it down, scale it down, whoopsie daisies, and rotate it. Perfect. So now we're going to grab another one of those tiles, doesn't matter which, I'm just going to take this one, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, move it up, and scale it down. Not scale it down, rotate it. And that looks perfect. Just gonna move it up just a bit more before we rotate it. Awesome. And now we're gonna take this material again. And yeah, we're actually gonna keep that. Now we're gonna select a new material, alpha. And we're gonna select the portal image that we just created. And as you see, it creates a black image, which is something that we don't want. So we're going to go to color, and we're going to select that same image to add the color to our new alpha map that we just created. And that just fixed our problem. We can also go to luminance and drag that same image over. We can even do it within Cinema 4D. Lower the brightness, and we're just going to add the mix strength to around 36%. Looks pretty good. Then we're going to select this, select the polygon, and drag this over. Now it just needs a bit of adjusting. So I'm going to set the length U and stretch it out a bit. Perfecto. Another thing that we have to do is rotate it. It's also showing up on the bottom, which we don't want. So we're just going to select this object, select the corners, and drag on the material that we created before. And it disappeared. Perfect. We're also going to texture the metaball while we're here. So we're going to go to create, new material. We're going to select the color to be an orange. A brighter orange. That looks pretty good. No specular, it has before. Luminance. More orange. And a reflection. This time no orange. And we're going to add a Fresnel object. A Fresnel mix strength of around 7%. Doesn't really matter. Just to create a shiny, bright orange material. And we're going to drag it onto our metaball. Now we're going to drag the glass material that we created onto our tube. And we're just going to drag the basic white material onto our little pipe extender, if you will. Now if you're having troubles rendering all of this, you can always go to options, level of detail, and set it to low. It might take away the metaball, or just add small bits and pieces, but it'll for sure make your computer run faster. But I'm pretty confident in my capabilities, so I'm going to set it back to high. So once we created this, we're going to go back and we're going to make a couple of barrels. We're going to go to new layer, and we're going to go play around with the loft NURBS. So we're going to go select a circle object, set it to ZX mode, and pull out a loft NURBS. Sweet. Now we're going to zoom out, drag the loft NURBS in, and we're going to start adjusting this. So the way loft NURBS works, it connects two splines and makes an object out of them. So if the top one can be slanted, it'll just create an object out of the two. And you can add as many as you want, and it'll still work. So, I'm going to scale this down just a bit here. And we're going to create two rims around this object. So once we have this one, we're going to make a new copy. Drag it just a bit up. Make a new copy. Drag it out. Make a new copy. Drag it in. And then in. And now we've created a pretty basic rim object. That needs a bit of work. So we're going to move this one a bit up. And I'm going to repeat the process as before. So we're going to scale this up. And we can use the previous circles that we have created and just drag them up to create another rim. Doesn't have to be too exact, just use your best judgment. But I like how this barrel is looking. So we can select that, make a new copy, hide this layer, make this one editable. Right click, select children, right click, connect objects and delete. Now this barrel is looking pretty boring because I want some kind of symbol on it, some kind of danger sign. So we're going to go back on Google. I'm going to type in danger sign. Caps locks is on. Images. And we're going to select a basic one. I like this one. So we're going to select it. View image. Save image to desktop. We're gonna call it danger sign. Gonna go to Photoshop, file, open. Open up danger sign. We're gonna delete the background. Just make sure you double click on the layer to delete it. To unlock the layer, press delete on your keyboard. And we're gonna save this image as file, save for web, PNG 24 with transparency checked on. And we're gonna save it as danger. Minimize Photoshop. Now we're gonna create a new material. Again, we're gonna play with the alpha maps, so we're gonna load this image. Make sure you're selecting the PNG one, not the JPEG that I saved. Click on alpha, load image, danger, and we created a pretty nifty danger sign. So once you made the material, we're gonna click on the barrel, have polygon selection turned on, go to select, loop selection, and we're gonna select the middle part of the barrel. If you misclick, you can always press Ctrl Z. Perfect, and we're gonna drag on this danger sign. We're gonna have it on UV mapping. Turn off tile. Now we're just gonna play around with the values. So we're gonna decrease the length. We're gonna drag this up. Repeat the process. But as you see, the danger is kind of inverted, and the quickest way to solve this problem, the quickest way I found, was to go back into Photoshop. I'm gonna go to click, edit, transform, flip vertical. I'm gonna flip this once again. Then we're gonna file, save for web. We're gonna call this X. Go back into Cinema 4D, load image, X, and it should not be inverted anymore. Then I'm gonna create a new material. Just make this a glossy black with no specular hit or reflection. Fresnel. And we're gonna drag this on top. And we're just gonna take this material that we created before and drag it on top. And we created a pretty cool barrel. Let's select all this, group objects, edit, copy, and go back to our initial layer. Then we can just paste this across. Edit, paste. Pretty big barrel. You can shrink it a bit more. See if it's touching the floor, which it is, and just spread them across over here. Not the hardest thing to do. And I'm also going to make one as though it's rolling on the floor. Gonna check if it's touching the floor, which it is over here. And we're going to reposition it. And that looks pretty awesome. Actually, I'm going to add a couple more barrels, because the scene looks kind of empty. And I don't really like that. Gonna rotate this around. Alright, I'm done. That's pretty good. So now we're left with to create the portal button, the portal people, and maybe even a portal poster that those two people could be holding up. So I'm gonna go into Photoshop and create a new document. Could be in inches. We're gonna make the width 8, the height around 5. We're gonna call it portal poster. We're gonna set the background to a lightish gray. And we're gonna make a pretty simple portal poster that you saw in the game. They were usually hanging around every level you enter, and usually had basic information which you would encounter in that specific level. Whoops. So we're gonna make a new layer for that. Edit. Nope. Stop not letting me do that. So we're just gonna continuously make a bunch of lines. Drag this one all the way here. Select all of them. We're gonna create a couple more. Now we're gonna select all of them. Do that again. Still not enough lines. I'm gonna do that twice over. Try that again. And that looks pretty cool. Control E. And we're gonna grab our type tool. And I think the portal font is actually Babus New. So I'm gonna see if I have that, which I will link in the description below. Yup. And we're gonna spell out something. What's something decently funny? Hello. And we're gonna increase the size of this. We're gonna leave it just at hello. And we're gonna put the guys underneath. Scale it down. Actually, it may be too much. I'm not even gonna bother. So we're gonna create two basic lines over here. Some sort of lightish gray. That actually may be too thin, so I'm gonna increase the width. Perfect. I'm gonna duplicate that, spin it around, and then drag it across. Beautiful, just what we want. So now we're gonna find, in Portal, they have these cool little portal symbols. So you can start looking for any ones you like, and we can drag them on top of our poster. I already found a set on DeviantArt, which I will link once again in the description. So we're gonna go to File, Open, Portal References, and Portal Coast, whatever the file is called. And we're gonna start dragging those images onto my Portal poster. We're gonna delete the white background, and then we're just gonna scale it down. You can make these as creative as you want, but they're usually not very visible. You can put them anywhere you want in the scene. Simple to make and adds a really cool effect. So we're gonna go to File, Save for Web, and call it Portal Poster. Now we need to make the portal, the little portal dudes you see all over the game. So if you search a portal stickman, you can find a bunch, not really seeing a lot actually. Portal stick figure, and we're gonna use this image, which I will once again link in the description. So File, Save As, his name is Bendy, and we're gonna go to Photoshop once again, make sure that he doesn't have a background on him, which he doesn't, and it's already in PNG, so we don't have to do the whole erasing the background part. So we're gonna go to File, New, we're gonna pull out a plane object, set it to Z, create a new material, and we're gonna drag bendy on it. Again, turn off specular, load image, bendy, turn on alpha. I'm gonna drag bendy to the alpha. So it's set on soft, image alpha. Should just be a black sphere, really nothing to it. Then we have it dragged onto the plane. I'm gonna rotate the plane around, pressing shift. And then we're just gonna play with bendy. So we're gonna set it to cubic, no tile, and we've created bendy. We have to rotate it again. Pretty sweet. I'm gonna edit, copy, and drag this to our main file. And now we're gonna be putting bendy in as many locations as we can fit him. Pretty cute bendy actually. Alright, so we're gonna drag one over here. Actually gonna scale this image to make bendy look a bit more realistic. Gonna make him editable. Alright, I like that version of bendy. And then we're gonna drag another bendy on this side, except we're gonna flip them because they're gonna be holding our poster. Sweet. And now we can put another bendy over here, as though he's drinking coffee or just relaxing after a hard day of work in the Portal Labs. We can set another one over here, running away after almost being squished by the Metaball. So I'm gonna go to File, New, grab another plane object, set it to Z, create new material. And this time we're not going to have an alpha map, just a color with an image, which is going to be our poster. Hello! I'm going to make this editable and then just scale down the plane however much we want it stretched. I like that. Edit, copy, and drag it back to our main file. Then we're going to rotate this, scale it down, drag it across, drag it just a bit back, and it's as if they're holding the bendy poster. And it's just fine adjustment, depending on how realistic you want it to be. Perfect. Now we have to create the button, which the portal cube, which would be standing on top of. And if you want to learn how to make the portal cube, Dawn for Motion Squared has an amazing tutorial on how to do that. I think it's only 30 minutes long, which I'll link in the description. Since making this tutorial any longer would definitely bore you guys. So now we're going to create the little portal button. So just going to minimize all this, go to portal references, and you see this little button reference that I found. Very easy to create. Again, we're just going to be playing with loft NURBS, connect objects and deleting them, and repeating the process. Even using a bit of bool to create these indents. So, back to Cinema 4D, File, New Object. And we're going to start off with the circle spline as always. Set it to XZ. And pull out a loft NURBS. So gonna drag the first loft NURBS, the first circle in the loft NURBS, then drag another one out. Scale it down. That would be our platform. Make another one, scale it down just a bit more, make another one, and drag it all the way down. Then we're going to select all of these, and I'm going to increase. No, it's just going to make it slower. Just change the adaptive points to natural. And we're going to increase it just a bit. After that, we're going to create the button, which uses the same technique. Or even we can just use a cylinder object, increase that, go to caps, select fillet, put the segments down to 0, take off the Fong tag, which curves all the edges, if that's easy to explain. And we're going to select the fillet to decrease the fillet a bit. We're going to make it a bit smaller. Drag it up. And that's our little portal cube button. Which needs a bit more fine adjusting, so I'm still not happy with that results. Also add a bit more rotation segments just to eliminate any edges that we don't want. Gonna make it a bit more rounded. Perfect. So we're gonna go create a new material. Again, specular is off, and this one is just gonna be a red button. And the base is just gonna be a simple white. Now we're going to bool the object, so we're going to grab a cylinder object from... Actually, we're going to start off with a torus. Those are always fun to work with. And we're going to decrease the torus with the ring radius and the pipe radius. Drag it on top so we see what we're working with. And let's make the pipe radius 4. After we've done that, we're going to grab 2 pipe objects. I grabbed a cylinder. Any will work. And we're going to make the object have a radius of 4. Bring this up again. Increase the length, and then make a new copy and rotate it. Perfect. We're going to select all these objects, make them editable, then select all of them again, connect objects and delete. Then we're going to select the bool tool, which will cut out the top from the bottom. Connect objects and delete again. Bool, bool, drag the cylinder on top. Not sure why it's not working. Oh, there we go. Small little bug in Cinema 4D. Gonna make a copy of this. Make this editable, select children, select objects and delete, and just repeat the process. Hopefully it gets rid of the bug. Huh, doesn't. Well, that indent is fine, to be completely honest. Not sure why that indent did not work for the second time. And we're going to drag the material on top again. And we've created this pretty cool indent. Second thing we're going to do is to create the small little platforms that are found on the sides of that object. So we're going to take away the Font tool from this again. And we're going to go to a perspective mode after we group all these objects into one. Perspective mode, front mode, And we're gonna make a very simple shape for the sake of this tutorial. So we're gonna grab a linear spline and set 1 point here, 1 point here, here. Set it to close spline, and we're gonna make a brand new one that's a bit smaller than the previous one. And it's gonna have a curve to it. So 1, 2. Whoops. 1, 2. And drag this back. Perfect. Doesn't have to be too exact, because we'll just hide these into the object. Go back into your perspective mode, and we're going to extrude both of these. So grab an extrude NURBS, and drag the first one under, increase the depth, and then grab the second one, and do the exact same thing. Except I want the one that's a bit smaller to be a bit larger than the other one. And that is perfect. Doesn't have to be too exact, once again. So select all of them, connect objects and delete. Whoops. Make sure you select objects twice. Unhide the previous thing. Scale this down. We're going to create a simple material. It's going to be a bit gray. No specular hit once again. Drag that on top. Grab a MoGraph cloner. Drag that underneath. Select radial. And then increase the count segments. That should be on X, Y, Z. We're going to have 4 of them. And you're going to go into transform. Select that to 90. Just so each one points out, and we're going to decrease the radius. And that is exactly what we wanted. Again, you can add more to it, add more depths, you can add more indents in here, whatever you want. So we're going to select all this, connect objects and delete. Actually, that's not a very smart move. So we're just going to group objects. Edit copy. Whoops. Edit copy. And drag it onto our main. I'm going to drag it over here. Scale it down. And that's a pretty cool platform. Not sure if we should keep it on this one or this one, but we'll put it over here. Alright, now we want to connect the actual pipe to this little button. So we're going to go back into Photoshop, File, New, and make sure you create a cube. We'll just make it 8 inches by 8 inches, doesn't matter as long as it's a square. And we're going to select the marquee tool, make a guide for 50% on the vertical, and just make a simple circle. Now we're going to select a bright neon orange, or even a blue. I think blue would work better. Select that, color it in. Then drag one up top, one on the bottom. And let's see what we have. Made a small mistake of where I drew the circle, but that should work out. I'm actually going to delete one of them because they look a bit too crowded. And that's perfect. Again, you can delete the white layer. File, save for web, PNG 24. We're going to call this front glowy. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're going to delete the top one. And this one as well. Then we're going to select the middle one and drag it out. File, save for web, corner, glowy. Sweet. And now we're just going to change the alpha maps on each one of these objects. So we're going to go select the polygon selection, create new material. The color we can set to whatever we want. So we're going to set it to a bright neon orange. Go to luminance, drag that same color into this channel. Decrease it a bit because we don't want it glowing too much. And also, so I don't forget, I'm going to go into the render settings and turn on object glow. That way it actually renders out the glow. Then we're going to go into alpha. After turning off the specular hit, texture, load image. And we're going to choose front glowy. Cool. And we're just going to rotate this. Perfect. We're going to repeat the same thing for this one. Then we're going to go find the material and we're going to drag it down. It's a lot of cubes. We're going to turn off tile and we're going to adjust it. So we're going to increase the offset V. Perfect. Then we're going to go find this cube. Create a duplicate of that material and we're going to change the alpha to load image to corner glowy. Silly file names, I know. But you gotta have fun when you're doing this. And we're going to drag that on and rotate. Perfect. I'm just gonna fine tune this a bit. So I'm gonna actually change the offset down here a bit. And that looks perfect. So again, you can find the portal, how to make the portal cube at motionsquare.com, which I will link in the description. And that is pretty much it. If you want to go above and beyond, what I did for some of my models was I found the edge over here, polygon selection, selected this side, went to extrude inner, then I grabbed the scale tool, moved it down a bit, created a brand new material, or just created a copy of this, turned off alpha, and dragged it on here to make it seem as though the edges were glowing as well, but that's not exactly necessary. That's just fine-tuning your modeling. Another cool thing that you can do is if you go into your render settings and in global illumination you click cache files, if you click auto load, then the second time you render something, it'll use the information from the last render that you did to speed up the current one. And if you flush cache, you're basically erasing all that memory that global illumination has stored. Oh, and also, don't forget to texture the letters. So get a basic material, you want them to be pretty white. So we're going to disable specular, make this white, check on luminance, and just tint this down a bit and apply this to every letter. Sweet. And that is how you make a portal isometric piece. So if you enjoyed the tutorial, make sure to leave a like, it always helps my channel, and also be sure to subscribe. Thank you!